Venezuelan Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello reported on Tuesday the capture of a U.S. individual involved in terrorist plans against the country. Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced the end of peace talks with the National Liberation Army following an attack that left 2 dead and 25 wounded. And in Lebanon, authorities declared September 18th as a day of national mourning following the explosion of wireless communication devices that left several people dead and injured. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello reported on Tuesday the capture of a U.S. individual involved in terrorist plans against the country. The announcement was made during an ordinary session of the National Assembly, where Cabello informed that the investigations on the new terrorist plans against the country have also led to the seizure of a batch of around 400 rifles of exclusive manufacture and use by the United States military. The Bolivarian official also denied the allegations spread on foreign social media that the individuals of Spanish and U.S. nationalities captured were doing tourism in Venezuela. Cabello reaffirmed the nation's intelligence agencies have the confession and other conclusive evidence that showed that the arrested belonged to paramilitary groups and foreign forces. The Minister of Interior said the capture of U.S. national was possible thanks to the information provided by the people. For his part, the President of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, informed that the Foreign Policy Commission of Parliament presented a draft agreement in which they categorically reject the resolution promoted by the fascist right wing of Congress of Deputies of Spain.
I would like to remind you that the Commission of Foreign Affairs of the National Assembly, as was well expressed by Deputy Roy Daza, has presented an agreement regarding the requests made by the National Assembly on September 11. The main agreements for the people of Venezuela to know are as follows. First, to categorically reject the disastrous resolution promoted by the fascist right of the Congress of the Deputies of Spain, as well as to exhort them to respect the decision of the Venezuelan people, which sovereignly elected the citizen Nicolas Maduro Moro as President-elect of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
The Cuban cultural institution Casa de las Americas ratified on Tuesday in a press release its support to the nascent Anti-Fascist International and its efforts to stop the advances of fascism and imperialism in Latin America and the Caribbean. The statement highlights the events that took place in Spain in 1937, when the nation resisted the troops of dictator Francisco Franco, and also referred to the various incursions, intrusions, and coups occurred in Latin America and the Caribbean from the mid-19th century to the present, in which the United States maintains intact its imperial vocation over the territories south of the Rio Grande. And in a conference in Geneva, Venezuelan Vice Minister of Anti-Blockade, William Castillo, gave a statement about the elections and the unilateral coercive measures that Venezuela faces and the past presidential elections of July 28th. Before the group of friends in defense of the Charter of the United Nations, the Vice Minister of Anti-Blockade explained the 3 states of the fascist cyber coup orchestrated in Venezuela, in which the country was constantly attacked by campaigns of disinformation of electoral results and criminalization of Venezuela's democracy in the media and social networks. Also, Castillo reminded how President Nicolas Maduro has been denouncing this coup of fascist nature from the beginning. In other news, Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced the end of peace talks with the National Liberation Army following an attack that left 2 young people dead and 27 wounded.
The consequences of the actions and the flow of history today bring us a dramatic event, repeated in recent years, an explosive Latin ball that injures 27 young people and kills 2. According to the information I have, it was placed by the National Liberation Army, with whom we were talking about peace. And obviously, as happened that time, in another place nearby, in the police school, when many police officers and signs who were studying there were killed. It is practically an action that closes a peace process with blood, and it is like an eternal becoming, to silence a part of the people and to continue in wars and killing each other again and again, as if that was our story.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back. Lebanese authorities report that 12 people were killed and near 2,800 injured in the terrorist attack perpetrated by Israel, which caused the simultaneous explosion of thousands of wireless pagers. During a press conference, Lebanon's Minister of Health, Firas al-Abiad, stated that several of the wounded are in critical condition, sustained facial injuries. He also informed that the governments of Iran and Iraq have sent medical aid to the country. Among the fatal victims of the attack was a minor who died after the explosion of one of these communication devices inside a house. In this context, authorities in Lebanon ordered the closure of 3 telecommunication companies and declared this Wednesday, September 18th, a day of national mourning. And Iran sent medical teams to Lebanon to assist the victims of the terrorist attack perpetrated by Israel. After the attack, the head of the Red Crescent Society of Iran, Pierre Hossein Colombian, announced readiness to send emergency medical teams to Lebanon and provide relief, treatment, and transport services to the seriously injured. In that regard, with the actions and in coordination with the Lebanese Ministry of Health, on Wednesday, Iran proceeded to send relief teams and Red Crescent volunteers to Lebanon, which included 12 general practitioners and specialists and 12 nurses and paramedics. Lebanese health minister received at Beirut airport an aid shipment sent by Iraq in the wake of the deadly Israeli cyberattack. The official supervised the delivery of the first batch of aid provided by Iraq, containing 15 tons of medical supplies, as well as 20 doctors and health workers who will be in charge of supporting the Lebanese health services. Al-Abiad also stated that other aircraft with up to 70 tons of medical supplies and medicines are expected to arrive. The Syrian Health Minister Hassan Muhammad al-Gabash expressed solidarity with the Lebanese people and readiness to provide treatment and assistance to those wounded by the electronic attack committed by Israel on Tuesday. In a telephone conversation with his Lebanese counterpart, Firas al-Abiad, the Syrian incumbent said that his country is fully ready to provide any kind of assistance to the Lebanese citizens injured by Tel Aviv's terrorist cyber aggression. He also expressed his condolences to the families of the victims and his wishes for a speedy recovery for the injured. And in a recent statement, the resistance movement Hezbollah blamed Israel for the widespread attack that caused a simultaneous explosion of thousands of communication devices in Lebanon. Precisely, the group said, after examining all the facts, current data and available information about the sinful attack that took place on Tuesday afternoon, we hold the Israeli enemy fully responsible for this criminal aggression that targeted civilians too. Hezbollah said it will continue to support the Palestinian resistance and added the treacherous and criminal enemy will certainly be punished for this aggressive act. In a previous statement, the movement had called on the people not to pay attention to rumors, false and misleading information that some parties spread in order to wage psychological warfare in favor of the Zionist enemy. Hezbollah stressed that the resistance at all levels and its various units are in full readiness to defend Lebanon and its brave people. Meanwhile, the Ansarullah movement, Yemen, confirmed its support to the Lebanese resistance, Hezbollah, in response to the Israeli threats to intensify its attacks on Lebanon. From the media committee of the Yemeni Popular Movement, Ansarullah, they indicated that they will give their support to the Lebanese resistance movement, Hezbollah, in the same way as they have been doing with the Palestinian people in their struggle. They also say that their forces will be deployed for continuous operations until Israel ends its siege and genocide in the Gaza Strip. The Ansarullah movement's expressions of support for the Lebanese resistance come in a context marked by persistent threats by Tel Aviv regime to intensify its offensives and transform the situation into a full-scale conflict against Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan government rejected Tuesday the cyber attack carried out by the Israeli regime against the Lebanese population in the south of the country, which left at least 12 civilians dead and injured around 2,800 people. The statement was issued through an official communique in which the Bolivarian government said that this type of practice, which generates violence, fatalities, and destruction, also causes panic and anxiety among the defenseless civilian population. The document goes on to stress that this attack, articulated through a sophisticated method of terror and intimidation to the population, adds to the despicable techniques used by hostile governments in the dangerous and increasing escalation of political and military tension in the Middle East. In another part of the text, Caracas warned that the silence of the international community in the face of the perverse and systematic violations of the principles contemplated in international humanitarian law only fits the pretensions of those who wish to unleash a dangerous escalation of violence of unimaginable consequences in the region. The Bolivarian government finally expressed its most sincere feelings of closeness to the Lebanese people and government for such an unfortunate event, while conveying a message of encouragement and solidarity to the families of the victims and injured. The United Nations General Assembly held an emergency special session on Tuesday, September 17th, to vote on a draft resolution submitted by Palestine demanding an end to the Israeli occupation. The text is based on the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on Israel's decades of occupation practices against the Palestinians. The draft resolution calls for an end to the Israeli occupation within a period of 12 months. Moreover, the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, stated that the solution is an independent and sovereign state of Palestine with the borders of 1967 and with East Jerusalem as its capital, living side by side in peace with Israel. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found your break, don't go away. Welcome back. The United Nations warns that more than 6 million children have been affected by floods and landslides triggered by Typhoon Yagi in Southeast Asia. The United Nations Children's Fund pointed out that the most vulnerable children and their families are facing devastating consequences, mainly in Myanmar and Vietnam. In this sense, they call to prioritize access to clean water, food, and education for children after the onslaught of the weather event. Floods and landslides caused by Typhoon Yagi left more than 290 dead in Vietnam and at least 226 in Myanmar. To a lesser extent, Thailand, Laos, the Philippines, and China also recorded casualties and hundreds of people affected. And the Brazilian government signed on Tuesday a cooperation agreement for the reconstruction of Rio Grande do Sul after the state was heavily impacted by floods in April and May 2024. The declaration was made by the state governor Eduardo Leite after his meeting with President Lula da Silva. The agreement includes a commitment to create a fund of an estimated equivalent to $1.2 billion that will be used for the construction of dams and flood protection systems, especially in the metropolitan region of Porto Alegre. The signing of the agreement includes the establishment of a council with members from the federal and state governments to oversee the public works needed to rebuild cities and infrastructure damaged by unprecedented flooding in early May. In other news, in Peru, the Legislative Congress did not authorize the trip of President Dina Boluarte to participate in the General Assembly of the United Nations. The Parliament reported that with 55 votes against, 50 in favor and 5 abstentions, the plenary of the Congress did not approve the draft legislative resolution 8834, requesting the departure of the President of the Republic, Dina Boluarte, from the national territory. In principle, the presidency had requested the permission of Parliament to travel to the United States from September 21st to the 26th. Up to now, the reasons of the legislature to deny the national leader the permission to travel are unknown. Ecuadorian president orders curfew in territories under state of exception due to general blackouts. The governor of Ecuador announced a curfew in the provinces that are in the state of exception and that will be affected by the national blackout from September 18th, 2200 hours local time, until September 19th, 800 hours. During this time, a national power blackout will be carried out, allowing maintenance works to the power transmission lines. The government of Daniel Noboa indicated that this schedule has been chosen to generate the least possible impact on the working day activities. In order to guarantee security and order, the National Police and the Armed Forces will extend its actions, focusing on the territories where there will be no movement. And in Argentina, 2 retirees request to declare unconstitutional Milei's veto to the law of pension mobility. 2 retirees filed a lawsuit requesting the declaration of the unconstitutionality of Javier Milei's veto that prevented, by means of a decree, the enactment of the law on pension mobility. The retirees are represented by the constitutional lawyer Andrés Gil Dominguez and the defender of the elderly Eugenio Semino. They claim that the grounds for Javier Milei's veto are unreasonable, that it is based on false data and that it aggravates the situation of a vulnerable and historically disadvantaged group, especially protected by the Argentine Constitution and by international instruments on human rights. And the exhibition The World According to Mafalda is being held in Venezuela in honor of the 60th anniversary of the character created by the Argentine writer Joaquín Lavado, known as Kino, who narrated the contradictions of our societies, but also the hope for a humane and peaceful world, all through a 6-year-old girl who does not like soup. Our colleague Leonardo Rieta has the details.
This exhibition, which has toured several Latin American and European countries, was brought by the Bolivarian government of Venezuela and will be open to the public until October 16th.
This exhibition was born in 2007 at the Children's Museum in Barrilete, Córdoba, Argentina, and has been touring Latin America and part of Europe for about 17 years. The magnificent Mafalda, a 6-year-old girl who invites us to reflect, to question ourselves, to inquire and ask questions that sometimes are uncomfortable for adults, and that invites us to recreate ourselves in all its stages.
It has been having for 60 years an audience not only in Venezuela but also in the whole world. This allows us to reflect on the fact that everyone leaves happy. In some way we go back to a childhood memory, to the adults, to the elderly. The old people leave happy. To a journalist, it is very interesting because there is a lot of reading.
Mafalda, a sus 6 años de edad, pregonaba en sus
Mafalda, at the age of 6, proclaimed in her chapters the need to move forward to a new world, without wars, where humanity is fundamental to build a new society without selfishness.
Mafalda siempre fue un personaje, al igual que Condorito en su momento, que nos hizo pensar mucho.
Mafalda was always a character, just like Condorito in his time, that made us think a lot. He made us think beyond the toys, but about the reason of life, to face the world that was not the one we wanted.
This is a very suitable exhibition for parents with their children, especially if they are young and can explain perfectly many of the situations raised by Mafalda.
El público venezolano asistente a la exposición.
The Venezuelan public attending the exhibition remembers the rebel Mafalda, even though 60 years have passed since it first broadcast, as it is still more valid than ever, in a world ever more convulsed by the West.
I love to see an exhibition of Mafalda. Besides, I think it is very well done. It is very beautiful, and well, We can confirm that it is still valid as if it had just come out.
The Mafalda that we have is really a very significant character in our lives. And when we approach an event like this, we have not only to be grateful that they have been willing to make available to each one of us here in the city of Caracas this sample of a character that is an icon and reference of a generation.
Mafalda, que se emitió desde el 29 de septiembre.
Mafalda, which was issued from September 29, 1964 until June 25, 1973, shows a comic strip with messages of peace and a new humanity from the hand of its creator Kino, a cartoonist from Argentina. Today, in Argentina, submerged in a deep crisis due to the application of the ultra-neoliberal model of Milei's government. The question that Mafalda lovers ask themselves is the following: what would this character say about what is happening in today's Argentina?
Jesús Romero y Leonardo Urrieta, teleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
And on September 18, 1970, U.S. guitarist, singer, and composer Jimi Hendrix died, known as one of the most influential musicians in the history of rock and roll, although his professional career lasted only 4 years. Hendrix fused United States traditions of blues, jazz, rock, and soul with techniques of British avant-garde rock to redefine the electric guitar in his own image, and was the composer of a classic repertoire of songs ranging from ferocious rockers to delicate complex ballads. Jimi Hendrix died at the age of 27 of asphyxia while sleeping. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.